Harvard University. The name alone conjures images of prestige, ancient ivy-covered buildings, and bright young minds, but beneath its polished surface, Harvard hides shadows and secrets that few dare to talk about. These are 3 disturbing true horror stories that happened within the walls of one of the most famous universities in the world.
I started my freshman year at Harvard full of excitement and, honestly, a little disbelief that I'd even made it there. My whole life had built up to that moment, stepping onto that historic campus, seeing the centuries-old brick buildings, feeling like I was walking through history. I was placed in Wigglesworth Hall, which, if you're not familiar, is one of the oldest dormitories on campus. It sits right along Massachusetts Avenue and, from the outside, looks like something straight out of a movie. Towering brick, old iron lanterns, and ivy crawling up the walls. It seemed perfect. My room was on the 2nd floor, a narrow but cozy double. My roommate, Jake, was a guy from upstate New York. Chill, easy to get along with. We hit it off fast, both of us ready to soak in every second of the Harvard experience. But from the very first night, something felt off. We had just finished unpacking and decided to check out the common room before bed. When we came back around midnight, we noticed the door to our room was ajar. I was sure I'd locked it. Jake was too, but we brushed it off. Maybe we'd been careless. We did a quick scan. Nothing was missing. Weird, but whatever. That night, I had the strangest dream. I was standing in our room, but it was completely empty. No beds, no furniture, just bare walls. And in the corner, near the window, was a man. He was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a long, dark coat, high boots, and he had this wild, unkempt beard. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring out the window, muttering something under his breath. I couldn't make out the words, but I remember feeling this crushing weight of sadness, like grief so deep it made my chest hurt. I woke up drenched in sweat. I didn't say anything to Jake the next morning because, honestly, it was just a dream, right? A week went by, and that dream faded into the background, but little things started happening. I'd come back to the room and find the window open when I was sure it had been shut. Our mini fridge would randomly hum loudly, like something was shaking it. Once, I came in and found Jake staring at the closet with this weird look on his face. "You good?" I asked. He snapped out of it and just shook his head. "Yeah, thought I heard something." We laughed it off, but the vibe in the room, heavy, oppressive. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late October, and campus was buzzing about Halloween. Jake and I had gone out to a party and stumbled back to Wigglesworth around 2 a.m. We crashed hard. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up needing to pee. I grabbed my phone, 3:07 a.m., classic horror movie hour. I stumbled to the door and froze. The room was freezing. I'm talking breath visible, frost on the window freezing, and that was weird because the heat in the dorms is ancient and usually way too hot, not the other way around. And then I saw him. The man from my dream. He was standing by the window, same clothes, same wild beard, but this time, he was looking right at me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stood there, heart hammering in my chest. His eyes were hollow, sunken, and full of rage. His mouth moved, whispering something I still couldn't make out. Then he raised his arm and pointed, not at me, but at Jake, who was dead asleep in his bed. The light bulb above us flickered, then went out completely. I don't know how long I stood there, but the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, gasping for breath. Jake was shaking me, panic all over his face. He said I'd screamed so loud he thought I was being attacked. I told him everything. We stayed up the rest of the night, lights on, watching that window. The next day, we couldn't let it go. We started asking around, other students, our ace, even a janitor who'd worked there for years. Most people shrugged us off, but the janitor, he looked at us hard and said, "You boys are in Wigglesworth B217, right?" We nodded. He sighed. "Figures. You know a student hanged himself in that room back in the 1920s? Caught his girlfriend cheating on him and, well, the story goes he couldn't handle it. They say he still hangs around, looking for justice or maybe just stuck." We were stunned. Jake and I looked up the story later that night, and sure enough, We found old records, grainy black and white photos of the dorm, a name we didn't recognize, but it lined up. That same night, Jake started having the dreams. He described the man exactly as I had. The window opening by itself became a regular thing. We started keeping the closet door wedged shut after Jake woke up one night to find it wide open and freezing air pouring out of it. We made it through the year, barely. Neither of us wanted to admit it, but by the end of spring semester, we were sleeping with the lights on every night. The day we moved out, we both looked at the room one last time, and I swear, just as we shut the door, we heard a whisper, clear as day. Stay. We didn't. We never looked back. And to this day, whenever I meet someone who says they lived in Wigglesworth, I ask one question. Did anything weird happen? The look on their face always tells me everything I need to know. If you've ever been to Harvard, you know that Widener Library is different. It's not just a library, it's a monument. Towering ceilings, marble columns, endless shelves of books that feel like they stretch into forever. There's history seeping out of every corner, and a kind of stillness that, at night especially, starts to feel oppressive. I worked there part-time during my sophomore year. Honestly, it was a dream job. I loved books, and Widener felt like a sanctuary. Most of my shifts were evening ones, 7 p.m. to midnight. I thought it would be peaceful, a perfect place to study once the library emptied out. I couldn't have been more wrong. My first few weeks went fine, mostly reshelving books, helping students find materials, and occasionally handling ancient manuscripts that made me feel like I was touching history. There were weird quirks. Sure, lights that flickered for no reason, cold drafts in random spots, but it's an old building. That's what I told myself. But then came the night that changed everything. It was late November, right before Thanksgiving break, and campus was quieting down. I was on my usual shift, alone in the lower stacks, where the oldest books are kept. I'd gotten used to being by myself down there. No cell service, no noise, just rows and rows of dusty shelves. At around 11 p.m., I heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought I was imagining things. It was faint, like air moving over a microphone, and I couldn't make out the words, but it was enough to make me stop what I was doing and listen. Nothing. I laughed it off, probably my mind playing tricks on me. I went back to shelving, but a few minutes later, there it was again. Closer this time. I turned around, shining my flashlight between the shelves. Nothing but books. Hello? I called out, my voice echoing weirdly in the silence. No answer. I was about to head back upstairs when I noticed something strange. One of the books on the shelf in front of me was pulled out, just a little. Curious, I reached for it. It was an old volume, leather-bound, brittle with age. I gently tugged it free, but as soon as I did, a gust of cold air blew across my face, so sharp and sudden it made me gasp. And then the whisper came again, right in my ear. I dropped the book and bolted. I didn't tell anyone at first. I didn't want to sound crazy, and besides, it was just a whisper. Old buildings make weird noises, right? But after that night, things started happening more often. Books that I'd shelved perfectly would be scattered across the floor when I came back. Lights would flicker violently when I entered certain rooms. Once, I found the security door to the basement, the one that was always locked, wide open, the padlock hanging uselessly from the handle. I started feeling watched, constantly, like eyes were boring into me from the dark corners of the library. And the whispers, they didn't stop. In fact, they started getting clearer. One night, about 2 weeks later, I finally made out what they were saying. Down here. I should have quit. I know that now, but curiosity got the better of me. I started asking around, coworkers, professors, even one of the archivists who'd worked at Widener for over 30 years. Most of them laughed it off, but the archivist didn't. He pulled me aside one evening and said, "You've heard the stories, right?" I shook my head. He sighed. Back in 1915, when they built this place, a construction worker went missing. No one ever found him. Some say he fell into a hidden shaft during the foundation work and got buried alive down there. People have reported strange things ever since. I felt the blood drain from my face. "There's more," he added. "The old blueprints show a sub-basement beneath the stacks, sealed off now, condemned decades ago. No one goes down there." That sealed it for me. I had to know. The next night, I brought a flashlight and decided to investigate. I waited until my shift was almost over, when I knew no one else would be around, and made my way to the deepest part of the lower stacks. I followed the whispers. They were louder now, almost urgent. After about 20 minutes of searching, I found something I'd never noticed before, a small door, half hidden behind a bookshelf. It looked ancient, with peeling paint and rusted hinges. I tried the handle, locked. But then, as if on cue, my flashlight flickered and went out. I smacked it a few times, and when the light came back on, the door was open. Heart pounding, I stepped inside. It was a narrow staircase, spiraling down into darkness. The air grew colder with every step, and the whispers became a chorus, layered voices, all murmuring at once. I felt like I was walking straight into a nightmare, but I couldn't stop. At the bottom, I found myself in a small, brick-walled chamber. It was empty, except for a single chair in the center of the room, and someone was sitting in it. At first, I thought it was a mannequin. The figure was slumped forward, skin pale and sagging, dressed in tattered old clothes. But then it moved, just a twitch of the hand, but enough to send me stumbling backward in terror. The whispers rose to a deafening roar. "Down here, stay, stay." I turned and ran, not looking back, not stopping until I burst out of the library into the freezing night air. I quit my job the next day. I never set foot in Widener Library again. A few months later, I heard a rumor that part of the library's foundation had collapsed, right near where I'd found that door. The area was sealed off for safety reasons, but I couldn't help wondering what, or who, they might have found down there. And every now and then, when I'm on campus late at night, I swear I can hear it, the faintest whisper, carried on the wind. "Down here."
When people talk about Harvard, they always mention its secret societies, those elusive, invitation-only groups that wield enormous influence. Names like the Porcellian Club, the Fox, and the Owl Club have become legends on campus, whispered about in dorm rooms and lecture halls. I never thought I'd have anything to do with them. But that changed my junior year. It started innocently enough. My roommate, Sean, and I were both political science majors. We'd been grinding for internships and connections, and Sean was especially ambitious. One night, he came back to our dorm with this look on his face like he'd just won the lottery. "You won't believe this," he said. "I got an invite." "To what?" He grinned. "To an exclusive club. Real exclusive." They didn't say the name, but, you know. I immediately knew what he meant. Secret society. At first, I was skeptical. I'd heard the rumors, parties in hidden chambers, powerful alumni pulling strings, bizarre rituals, but it all seemed like urban legend. Sean was adamant, though. He showed me the invitation, a simple white card with gold embossed lettering, no name, no logo, just a date, a time, and a location. "Come with me," he said. They said I could bring someone. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The meeting place was a mansion near Brattle Street, tucked away behind high stone walls. It was the kind of place you wouldn't even know existed unless you were looking for it. As we approached, I felt a chill, not just from the cold air but something deeper, like a gut feeling telling me to turn back. But Sean was excited, practically dragging me up the steps. A man in a black suit opened the door, nodded silently, and led us down a long, dimly lit hallway. We were brought into a library, walls lined with ancient books, a fire crackling in the massive hearth. About a dozen people were there, all wearing dark robes with hoods that obscured their faces. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a deep, calm voice. "Welcome. Tonight, you begin your journey." I should have left then and there, but curiosity, and maybe a bit of peer pressure, kept me rooted to the spot. They asked us a few vague questions about loyalty, secrecy, and ambition. Then they blindfolded us. We were led, stumbling, disoriented, down what felt like a spiral staircase. I counted the steps in my head, trying to stay calm. Finally, we stopped, and they removed the blindfolds. We were in a stone chamber lit by dozens of candles. Symbols were etched into the floor, circles, triangles, and strange markings I didn't recognize. At the center of the room was a table, and on it, something that made my blood run cold. A mask. Made of what looked like porcelain, but cracked and aged like it had been around forever. Its eyes were hollow, its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. "This," the leader said, "is the mask of silence. Every member has worn it. Tonight, it is your turn." He held it out to Sean. Sean hesitated, but he was too far in now. He took the mask and put it on. They handed me a second mask identical, except this one had a small crack down the forehead. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, but my hands moved on their own, lifting the mask to my face. As soon as it touched my skin, the air seemed to change, thicker, heavier. My vision blurred around the edges, and I felt this pull, like something was crawling inside my head. The ceremony began. They chanted in a language I didn't recognize, voices low and rhythmic. The room seemed to pulse with every word. My heartbeat sped up. I felt dizzy, disoriented, like I was floating outside my own body. Suddenly, all the candles went out at once. We were plunged into darkness. I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling us, then a whisper, so close it felt like it was right inside my ear. "Welcome." A flash of light, and for a split second, I saw them, faces, not the people in the room, but something else, pale, hollow-eyed figures, watching us from the shadows. Then everything went black again. When I came to, I was lying on the floor of my dorm room, the mask still clutched in my hand. Sean was in his bed, dead asleep. I sat up, heart racing, trying to make sense of what had happened. Was it a dream? A hallucination? But the mask was real, solid, cold. Sean didn't want to talk about it the next day. He looked off, pale, like he hadn't slept in days. He said we should forget it, that it was probably just some weird hazing ritual. I tried to move on, but things got worse. Sean started having night terrors, screaming in his sleep, clawing at his face. He wouldn't say what he was seeing, but his eyes told me enough, pure terror. And me? I started seeing them, the pale figures, reflections in windows, faces in the shadows of the library. Once, I woke up to find the mask locked away in my desk drawer, lying on my pillow. We tried to get rid of it, burned it, smashed it, even threw it into the Charles River. It always came back. By spring semester, Sean had dropped out, vanished, no goodbyes, no explanation. I asked around, but no one knew where he'd gone. It was like he'd never existed. And me? I kept seeing them. Even after graduation, they followed me, whispers in the dark, glimpses of hollow eyes in mirrors. I moved across the country, changed my number, cut ties with everyone from Harvard. But it didn't matter. Some nights, I still wake up with the mask in my hand. And I know, deep down, that I never really left that room beneath the mansion. None of us do.